the Full Court Press with Eric Franson and Jason Walker.
Welcome back to the to the show that we're doing right now.
Following the local teams, breaking down the biggest games with in-depth analysis and team interview. Join the show by calling into 435-752-1069 or text 435-339-0321. It's the Full Court Press.
Rose, hands up, yes! Caught! Touchdown! They did it!
Good afternoon and welcome on into the Full Court Press. Jason Walker, and for the time being, it's going to be just me. Eric Franson, he was texting me earlier today, a couple of hours ago. He said that he was in Idaho Falls and hadn't even started to head on south yet. And Google tells me as I just looked it up. I couldn't remember exactly how far away Idaho Falls was, but it told me about 2 hours and 15 minutes. So odds are that I'm going to be by myself for a little bit in this first hour, if not a decent chunk of the show. But certainly if you guys want to join me on this good old-fashioned Tuesday adventure, feel free to text in at 435-339-0321 as we go throughout a day filled with just kind of small nuggets of news. There's one pretty big topic. I think I'm going to save it toward the second hour just because I want to see if we can get Eric in here and discuss this. It's the kind of change potentially coming to college football. I should say it's potentially. It's not a guarantee yet. But it's something that I've been really harping on, a change that needs to happen. I know Eric has pretty much agreed with me there. I've been pretty vocal about it. Changes to the transfer portal. We will get to that if you want to text in. If you saw the news, there's some reporting. Ross Dellinger, ESPN, also reporting the news about a potential change to the transfer portal that would move it to January and eliminate the spring window. But again, we'll get into that a little bit later. 9315 texting in saying it's a big letdown and a rise from the ashes when you, for some reason, think the Aggie men's basketball game is tonight and go all day jumping for joy until some about now say it's not until tomorrow. Darn my luck. We at least get to hear more game prep on the show, I hope. And we won't do as much UNLV specific. We are going to discuss the Mountain West. We're going to discuss all the other games because, everyone else in the Mountain West gets to play today, just about. But the Aggies don't play until tomorrow. The team is in Las Vegas right now. They've already made that trip, and as such, we've actually already had the pregame or before the game media availability. That happened yesterday as I went down to the Spectrum, talked to Dexter Cano as well as head coach Jared Calhoun. We'll likely play those tomorrow. Just kind of some thoughts on those games, or maybe we'll see if I start running out of stuff here. I might play the Dexter Cano audio, partly because we talked almost as much about the Boise State game and not a ton about UNLV. They hadn't done as much prep on UNLV yet. Jared Calhoun had a lot more to say about the UNLV game. We asked him a lot more questions and things like that. So we'll probably hold off on that for a little while. 9315 also texting in something that was on the docket for today's show, and that was just kind of the news about Deion Sanders, rumored to be reported and I believe confirmed by reputable reports that Deion Sanders is talking with the Dallas Cowboys to be their next head coach, which felt like I feel like people were saying this was going to happen like a year ago. I had it in my head that, of course this was going to end up happening. Of course Deion Sanders is going to ditch Colorado to go coach the Cowboys, especially this year where Shedeur Sanders is going to the NFL. And, of course, he'd go to the Cowboys, force Shedeur into the Cowboys organization, and 9315 saying it would be a national clown show. That is exactly what I think it would be. I don't know if the world could handle the media circus, and I do mean circus, clown show, whatever you want to call it. All of those descriptors would just be perfect. Like, we thought it was bad with Colorado. Colorado is like not really a media hub. Like, people don't talk about the University of Colorado, and they were the hottest ticket in town to talk about. Big Noon Kickoff went there like 6 or 7 times, it felt like. Every week, their games were the biggest thing. Like when BYU whooped up on them in whatever bowl game, I forget which bowl game they played in, ESPN's front page story was about Colorado. And, not about BYU kicking Colorado's butt. I know the Cougars aren't going to draw much sympathy from this crowd that I'm talking to, but that's just kind of the media situation we're dealing with here. But wanted to lead off with the Mountain West, the games that are happening today. Most of the games occurring on Tuesday here. The Aggies do play Wednesday. A bit of a weird situation there. I mean, it's not too atypical to have like one game happen on a different day, but most of the games happen on a single day. Like there was a game Friday, and then there was the full slate of games on Saturday, if I remember correctly. Wasn't it? Oh, no, I'm just misremembering because that didn't happen. So I'm looking at Friday the 10th. There were no games. Yeah, well, I guess last week there was a bunch of Tuesday games and then Wednesday. So I guess they do it somewhat often. I don't know how they decide that. Because like you say, okay, Utah State played Saturday and then they get to play Wednesday, but like Boise State played Saturday and they go to Tuesday. Like I don't know. It's probably something to do with TV time windows. I mean, Utah State is on CBS Sports Network. It's a late tip, 9 p.m. our time, 8 p.m. local there in Vegas. Well, we'll get into some more specific matches. Of course, if you have any questions about the matchups, if you have any questions you want an answer now, like if you want to hear my thoughts, just text any questions you have about what I may think are the biggest matchups, biggest concerns with UNLV. 9315 saying, is the game tomorrow because the Aggies get a whole week off? I don't think so. Because you look at last week, I mentioned there was this kind of same situation with most games on Tuesday, one game on Wednesday, but that was San Diego State and Air Force, and both of them, Air Force played on, both of them ended up playing on Saturday. So I don't know if it's like a whole week off. I don't think UNLV is getting a week off. I don't know. It's just kind of weird. And then I don't think Utah State plays again until like the next Wednesday. Although that next Wednesday, the situation kind of flips because there's one game on Tuesday and then 3 games in the Mountain West on that next Wednesday. So really interesting. I wonder what goes into all these different plans, like playing on Tuesday versus Wednesday, Friday versus Saturday, and how they mix and match everything. We're like in high school basketball, at least for the longest time this year, it's kind of a little more wacky, especially because Logan just played literal back-to-back games, reaching games. They played on Friday and Saturday against Westfield and Green Canyon. But like for the longest time, it was just you played Tuesday and what was it? Tuesday, Thursday, or Wednesday, Friday, like clockwork. But here with the Mountain West, it's just kind of a different situation. They'll play on Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, any game pretty much. They tend not to play on Sunday, Monday, Thursday, at least once they get into conference play. But let's look at the matchups, talk about the different teams going up against each other. Not a whole lot of heavyweight matchups with these teams. You start off, you got Wyoming and Boise State. But it's kind of an interesting game because Wyoming has been a tricky opponent for several teams. They beat Nevada. That was in Laramie. They did end up losing to Boise State in Laramie as well. That was probably the game that was not as close in Laramie, because games in Laramie, like they beat Nevada, they dang near beat New Mexico in Wyoming. But the thing is, Wyoming hasn't, they've been good away from home at times, They were pretty challenging to Utah State. Mind you, that was when they made like 10 or 11 3-pointers against the Aggies. So that was a bit of an anomaly. Wyoming did put out something where they said, they're looking for their third straight win away from home. And I just thought it was funny, because it makes it sound like they're on a really hot stretch away from home. But their last 2 away games that they won, in fact, it's the only 2 games away from home that they have won, was a 4-point win over Cal State Fullerton, who ranks 327th in KenPom. And Air Force, a 5-point win, and the Falcons rank 304th in KenPom. So Wyoming has not really done well away from home, at least in terms of getting results. Like the one game that I think you can say they definitely overperformed was Utah State, where they only lost by 3 points. Every other time they've kind of not been great away from home. So as much as Wyoming has been kind of a trap game, since they're at Boise State, I don't think it's going to be that much of a problem for the Broncos. I think they'll win fairly comfortably. Wyoming will probably drag the pace down, so the margin may not be huge. If Boise plays a great game, it could be a huge margin. But if Boise plays an average to slightly above average game, they'll win by 8, 9, 10, 11 points, depending on how well Wyoming plays. Just because there's going to be a lot fewer possessions. Like, Boise State on the road, they beat the Cowboys by 9 points. And so I think that's about a margin you could see, just because, again, Wyoming, they drag it out. They muck the game up. They make it ugly. So you win the game by 9 or 10 points. That's about what you should be doing. For instance, KenPom has Boise State. Has them winning by 13, which isn't this massive margin, but it'll be comfortable enough for the Broncos, I think. Going to the next one, New Mexico going up against San Jose State. I don't really expect this to be much of a contest. I think New Mexico matches up pretty well against San Jose. I know the Aggies struggled against them a little bit, but again, that was 14 3-pointers from San Jose State. And I just don't think they have the firepower to keep up with New Mexico. So not much going there. And kind of same thing with Air Force Nevada. The Wolfpack are trying to recover from their disastrous start. And they got that win against Fresno State. And then they get Air Force at home. Falcons are just far and away the worst team. Like you look at some of the teams in the Mountain West and they rank fairly low in the net or in KenPom. But, you have San Jose State at 191, but then you go to, Fresno State, they've kind of collapsed going down all the way to 260, but Air Force, again, they're in the 300s. They're in the bottom 50 or 60 in the nation. So Nevada should be able to take care of business in that regard. The one that I'll be keeping an eye on, and I will probably do my best to watch this game. I was about to say watch this game in person. That's not happening because I'm not flying out to San Diego. If I were going to watch that game, I'd basically have to leave right now. But I'll be watching it on TV. It'll be on CBS Sports Network. Late tip, 9 p.m. So you only get to watch this one if you're willing to stay up until 11:30. But this is a game I'm super curious about because I'm kind of starting to stick up for Colorado State. Because looking at their recent results and seeing that Nick Clifford is back, he's on a roll. He's looking like, honestly, the best player in the conference. Like, the only reason he wouldn't win Mountain West Player of the Year, if you ended the season right now and then just handed out the awards and went to the tournament, the only reason Nick Clifford, I think, wouldn't win it is because you have Donovan Dent with New Mexico on a 6-0, New Mexico team, and then one of Mason or Ian, just pick one, with Utah State being the highest ranked team, their best player would be in consideration. But honestly, I think Nick Clifford might just be the best player. Now, I think it's between him and Donovan Dent right now. Ian and Mason have had maybe a bit of a slump, right? I don't think they have enough positive momentum, whereas Donovan Dent and Nick Clifford are dominating and have their teams on a real roll. I think you're looking at two of the best players definitely. But Ian Mason, pretty well up there with both of those guys. But this is where Colorado State is really going to run into, I think, their biggest hurdle, where you look at their last few games and they have been absolutely dominant, but they've been playing kind of the weaker teams. They started out splitting with Nevada. They won on the road at Nevada. Impressive, even though Nevada has struggled to maintain their high ranking. Then they lose at New Mexico by 8. And then they just rattle off 3 straight blowout wins. They beat San Jose State 72-50. They beat Fresno State 91-64. Then they beat UNLV, who's borderline top 100 in like the net and Ken Palm and all that. They beat them 84-62. So Colorado State is looking more and more and more like a legit team. They struggled early on in the season. They got blown out by Mississippi, who's a top 25, top 30 team. They lost to UC Riverside. That's probably their worst loss of the season, is losing to UC Riverside at home in overtime. They also lost to Washington. That's another top 100 team. They lost to teams like Colorado VCU. It's like, the problem with Colorado State isn't so much that they've been a bad team. It's that they've not beaten anybody until somewhat recently. Their best win until beating Nevada on December 21st was beating TCU in overtime. Every other win on their schedule was like North Dakota or Tennessee State, which they had to beat in overtime. They beat a Denver team, one of the worst teams in the country, barely beat them. I should say barely beat them. They beat them by 9, but that's not the margin you're looking for there. So they didn't have a lot of great wins, so nobody thought anything of Colorado State. Every opportunity they had to prove themselves, they failed. Now they're getting back to a point where they can prove themselves. Can they beat San Diego State on the road in Viejas? And I think that would be the thing that proves Colorado State. If they go in there and just lay an egg against the Aztecs, then slot them in the pretender spot. Slot them in that, what UNLV was last year. This team that should be, will be beating a lot of the lower ranked teams in the conference, but can't hack it at the top for the most part. I know UNLV had some surprise wins against teams at the top last year, and Colorado State has that win over Nevada. And they may very well beat, a Boise State or maybe even Utah State if they beat the Aggies when they're in Colorado. That's entirely possible. But I think this will be a massive indicator. And then, a couple of games after that on January 22nd when Colorado State takes on Boise State. So to me, this is the most important matchup because you've got a team that I think can go from pretender to contender if they win here. Of course, at the same time, San Diego State, they're clinging to their own kind of legitimacy where they're the highest ranked team in Ken Palm. And a lot of rankings have them above Utah State, or at least some of them do. Ken Palm has San Diego State at 36, highest in the Mountain West. Utah State's at 44. So if they end up losing to Colorado State, that pretty much knocks them off top of the heat, sends them to 3-3. They'd be 3-3 in conference play. And they'd be in kind of a similar / slightly worse situation to Boise State, where you feel like conference title contention may be slightly out of reach, even though you have a lot of hopes for the postseason. And of course, if Colorado State beats San Diego State, then you're suddenly worrying about whether or not the Mountain West is even a 2-bid league. But I think San Diego State will get the benefit of the doubt if they're able to finish the season strong. But for them, they've got to be able to stop Colorado State's hot run if the Aztecs, and especially when they're at home. So that, I think, is what makes this Colorado State-San Diego State game really a highly underrated game today. Like Utah State, Boise State got tons of hype. And, San Diego State, New Mexico got a lot of hype. The game didn't quite live up to that as much as Utah State, Boise State. But I think this Colorado State, San Diego State game, and I'm not saying it's going to be exactly at the level of a Boise, Utah State, or what San Diego State, New Mexico, man, but this is a really underrated game. One final text before we go to break, 8968, getting back to talking about Deion Sanders. Says if Deion Sanders gets to be the coach of America's team, it would just be another reason another reason to root against Dallas. Yeah, I know a lot of people would start rooting against them, but they'd obviously, I don't know, could they gain more fans? It feels like the kind of person who rooted for Colorado, just rooted for them and was, became a big fan of Colorado because of Deion Sanders. It feels like that person would already be a Dallas Cowboys fan. So I don't know if they'd gain any fans, but they'd certainly, there'd be a lot more media hate because Deion Sanders was, being as popular as he was, he got overhated. There were a lot of people who would, find every possible flaw and then try and make him out to be some kind of horrible villain. And it's not like he's perfect, but he was a guy who had a rough first season and then a pretty solid year this year. Now, he helped turn Colorado around. I don't know if they'll be able to, maintain it after this season because they're losing a Heisman winner and the guy who's going to get drafted like top 5 in the NFL draft. So I don't know if they'd maintain it. And that may be why Deion Sanders is bouncing because he does feel like the kind of guy who would just bounce after his 2 favorite players are gone. It does seem kind of on brand for Deion Sanders. We're going to go ahead and take a break. When we come back, we'll focus a little bit more on the Aggies. What are the toughest games for them coming up? What expectations you think should be set for the remaining season? What kind of record would we expect in Mountain West play? What would be required for them to maintain their current projections for the NCAA tournament? And we'll talk about those current projections. And also Leon Rice just being a genuinely cool dude and right on Q6391 texting in, I think talking about it just now. So we'll discuss that and get to your text coming up next here on the Full Court Press.
Now here's a concept. You earmark 1/3 of your profits to go back into the community, to local charities. Dex Imaging does that. My name is Anthony Wagner, and I'd like to share with you what I know about Dex, the company that acquired Valley Office Systems. Dex Imaging is committed to continuing quality customer service while raising the bar to become a strong community partner. Join us in creating the brightest image for tomorrow. Contact us at deximaging.com.
A mouth-watering Cafe Sabor burrito, smothered in cheese and fresh guacamole with endless chips and salsa, plus your favorite drink, all for just $7.95. It's Locals Day at Cafe Sabor. Every Thursday, the drinks are bottomless, the chips and salsa are endless, and the burritos are amazing, all for just $7.95. There's nothing better. It's Cafe Sabor's way of saying thanks, Cache Valley. Don't miss Locals Day every Thursday at Cafe Sabor in the historic train station, 6th West and Center in Logan.
S.E. Needham Jewelers is where Utah gets engaged. We offer a large selection of personalized service and extraordinary benefits with our integrity price guarantee. At Match Quality, you'll find our prices to be as low or lower than any store in the state. We consistently beat any 50 to 70% off sales, internet pricing, or so-called wholesale deals. In fact, we even price our diamonds at internet pricing. So you'll get S.E. Needham quality at internet prices. Open Monday through Saturday, 10 to 7, where Utah gets engaged. S.E. Needham Jewelers, middle of the block, at the sign of the clock.
Whether you're a farmer working the fields, a homeowner tackling weekend projects, or a contractor building the next big thing, you need a Kubota machine that works as hard as you do. And Cash Equipment is home to all your Kubota equipment, service, and parts needs. From plowing fields and clearing land to digging trenches and moving material. Come see why Cash Equipment and Kubota are the choice of champions on the farm, at home, and on the job site. Cash Equipment in Hyde Park and online at cashequipment.com.
The Aggies, the Jazz, the high schools, the Full Court Press on Sports Talk Radio, 106.9 FM, 1390 AM. The Fan.
Welcome back to the Full Court Press. And as noted right before the break, 6391 says, yeah, wow, good timing. Definitely. As I was teasing a story that 935 just texted in about right as I was going to break, saying, did you see Leon Rice saw the tantrum tracker and subsequent donation to the food pantry and made a donation himself? BJ Rains tweeted out, and yes, he did. BJ Rains, Bronco Nation of Bronco Nation News, reporting this. Probably heard it either maybe from Leon Rice or from someone close to him. Basically, that Leon saw the donations because obviously they got the tantrum tracker that they bring out whenever Boise State comes to town, and they even bring it to him at the Mountain West tournament. And they tally up the number of tantrum basically every time Leon Rice goes and talks to the referee, which is a lot. I think they made it up to 21, and then I think it's like $25 per tantrum, and then some other people chipped in as well. So the math doesn't exactly work out to this, but I think it was $765 that ultimately is being donated to the Cache Community Food Pantry. From I forget who specifically is making. Maybe it's the Herd or someone again collecting donations from this whole tantrum tracker thing. But yeah, Leon Rice saw it, and BJ Rains saying they made a sizable donation again, and it was to the Cache Community Food Pantry. So a great gesture there from Leon Rice, and something I've said over and over, and I'll say it now. Old 6391 saying it's a bunch of Aggie fans that pledge an amount per tantrum. Okay, yeah, I forget I had forgotten the exact logistics behind that. But yeah, something that ends up getting hidden behind Leon Rice's kind of on-court demeanor and behavior, where he, goes up to the referees after like every single play, trying to get the referees to, call things in his team's favor, trying to point this out, that out, ask why wasn't this a foul, why did you call that foul, all that different stuff, where he's working the referees for the entire 40 minutes in the game. And that doesn't endear him to anybody. Obviously, Aggie fans have really picked up on that. You got the tantrum tracker, you got the water bottles labeled saying Leon Rice's tears and all the comments about Leon Rice crying and whatnot. But that whole demeanor ends up just kind of hiding the fact that Leon Rice is just a chill dude. Like, he is, I've had a chance to talk to him a few times. I'm by no means like some kind of friend or a close friend or acquaintance of Leon Rice. I've chatted to him like a handful of times. It's not like I'm buddy with him. But when I went and saw him at Mountain West Media Days, interviewed him, and then turned the microphones off, and we talked for like 4 or 5 minutes. Just, unprompted. He doesn't know me super well, but he just wanted to talk. We talked a little about Utah State football. Obviously, there was some pretty crazy stuff going on at that point because Blake Anderson had been fired at that point. There's a whole lot of stuff going on. He just wanted to chat for a few minutes. And so every single thing I've ever heard about Leon Rice and every interaction I've had with him just indicates that he is just a genuinely good dude. And a good coach too, for all the flack that some of the Herd gives him for not actually being a coach and only whining at the referees. Like, he is a genuinely good coach with what he's done with that program, and so it's a really nice story to see, and a wonderful gesture from Leon Rice, where he's taking a situation where he is getting explicitly made fun of, and people are having fun at his expense. But they turn it into a charitable donation, and Leon Rice is, well, like, I'm not going to let, personal insult and embarrassment from losing that game stop a great charitable opportunity. And so he ends up making the donation. So Leon Rice, again, just a genuinely good dude, and, someone who shows a lot of class. On the court, though, he could work on his on-court persona, because it makes him look like less of a good dude. But hey, if it works, it works. Maybe that's part of the secret sauce for him, as he works the referees, and that's how he's able to get a few more wins for his team. But speaking of getting a few more wins, the Aggies are certainly going to be looking to do just that the rest of the season. Obviously, a spectacular start to the season. Excuse me, got to hit my cough button. They're 16-1. I think that ties for fourth best start in program history. If I remember correctly, because there's a couple where the Aggies won like all one loss starts where they got up to like 20 something wins. I forget which seasons. I know Utah State has put it in They put it in like their post-game notes. I'd have to pull that up to know specifically. But last year, the Aggies started 16-1. Their second loss didn't come until January 16th against New Mexico, when they got pummeled 99-86 on the road. Just not the greatest day for them in that one. Of course, they end up getting the win over New Mexico as kind of revenge when they got them at home. But the Aggies will try to avoid that same fate when they take on UNLV, but that's not necessarily the toughest game, at least on paper. So the question is, what are the stretches of games where the Aggies could end up struggling a bit? Because, for instance, the Aggies start 16-1 last year, but they lost in New Mexico. And then a little bit later down the road, they actually ended up losing 3 out of 5 games. They lost at San Diego State, lost at home to Nevada for their only back-to-back loss of the season. They did get that home win over Boise State, but then they also lost to Colorado State. A 20-point loss, just got whacked by Colorado State on the road. So is there a stretch of games that could be kind of like that? You know, basically early to mid-February, they lost 3 times in 5 games. And when you look at the projections for Utah State, for instance, Ken Pom has them going 16-4 in Mountain West play. So that's 10-4 the rest of the way. So where could the Aggies end up picking up several, a few losses in bunches? I think these next 6 or 7 games probably aren't that, because you're at UNLV. That is a potentially tough game, and especially because UNLV is really going to be going after the Aggies after what happened last time at UNLV. Home against Nevada, I think that could be a challenge, but again, you're at home, and the Wolfpack still have their struggles. And I think I'm not as concerned about the Wolfpack matchup-wise after seeing the Aggies play them once. Away against Air Force, there's no way you should be losing that. Then home against UNLV, there's no way you should be losing that. Home against New Mexico, definitely a challenge, but still, again, a very winnable game. And then you've got, you're at Wyoming and at Fresno State. That can maybe be a sneaky tough one, but you really shouldn't be losing either of those games. And so, again, that's the next 7 games. If the Aggies picked up more than 1 loss, and about the only ones I think the Aggies have a decent chance of losing are at UNLV, home against Nevada, home against New Mexico. That's 2 home games and a road game. So over the next 7 games, I'd be incredibly surprised if the Aggies had more than 1 loss, and I'd be decently surprised if they lost at all, although it is certainly possible with some of these good teams. But it's the final about 7 games where Utah State is at risk of almost pulling a Boise State, where they maybe stumble toward the end. Because they've got home against Colorado State. That could be a tough matchup. At the Pit, which, for instance, is one of only 2 projected losses by Ken Pom the rest of the way. Like games in which Ken Pom favors a different team from Utah State. Because if you look at Ken Pom's projections, the percentage favors the Aggies in all but 2 of their remaining games, which again tells you about what the expectation is for the Aggies, to win just about every game the rest of the way. Although just playing the odds and percentages, Ken Pom says they'll go 16-4. So he's expecting the Aggies to lose 2 games in which they're favored in and lose 2 games in which they're not favored in. So, yeah, you have home against Colorado State, and I've already gone on about how I think they're an incredibly dangerous team, and they have to play them twice in this last 7 games. You're at New Mexico, which is an incredibly challenging game. Home against San Jose State, that's pretty much one of your 2 easiest wins. There are 2 kind of layup games that I think the Aggies should cruise to. Home against San Jose State, and they get home against Air Force in their season finale. But, after playing Colorado State at home, New Mexico State away, San Jose State at home, you then have to face San Diego State at home, who are going to be itching for revenge after losing in Viejas. You have at Boise State, who are obviously they're going to be smarting after this last loss and what's going to be a 5-game losing streak for them going into that game. This is the other game that Ken Pom projects the Aggies to lose. And then you're at Colorado State. So you've got a 3-game stretch where you're home against San Diego State, and then at Boise State, at Colorado State. And that's wrapped up in, a 5-game stretch overall, or 6-game stretch that also includes at New Mexico and home against Colorado State. So I think for the next 6 or 7 games, the Aggies will probably maintain first or second place in the Mountain West. If they aren't first or second in the Mountain West, that'd be an incredible disappointment. But the real difficulty of this season is going to be felt in late February and early March. Because they're going to play a brutal stretch of games. They're going to go through about as easy as it's going to get for the next month. But late February, that's when it's going to be time to buckle up. And I think that's also when the Aggies' depth could come into play. Because they're playing 11 guys. Some of the teams are playing really thin. They play 7-8 guys in their rotation. The Aggies play 10 or 11. Depending on if they have, Drake Allen missed a couple games. Isaac Johnson's missed a game because he was sick. As long as these guys are healthy, they're playing 10, 11 guys. And I think that could end up helping them in these late games. When teams are banged up, they're tired, they've played a lot of games in a short amount of days. And so I think that could be a hidden advantage for the Aggies. It's not going to make these games that much easier, but it's something that could make them a little more winnable. 9315 says, for the Aggies to have a really good season, we can only lose 1 or 2 more games in conference. Yeah, and I think that's when you're looking at Utah State's potential seeding. Like, there's people that are thinking, okay, the Aggies are going to look for a 5 seed or a 6 seed, like even eyeing a lofty 4 seed, which the Aggies would have to go undefeated and blow everyone out the rest of the way to get a 4 seed. But when you look at bracket matrix right now, I looked earlier today, and they updated it last on January 10th. So actually before Utah State beat Boise State. But on the most recent update, and right now they're not updating it super often. In late February and March, they'll be updating it daily. But Utah State, of the 51 brackets that are collected into this little matrix, the Aggies are on all 51 of them, and they're projected as a 6 seed. They're the 3rd in that little bunch of 6 seed. There's 4 of them, obviously, and they're the 3rd just ahead of Mississippi. And they're projected as the Mountain West champion currently. San Diego State is an 8 seed in this. But you also have New Mexico kind of sneaking in here. They're on 14 brackets. And I don't know if some of them are projecting them as maybe the Mountain West champion, or if they're seeing them as an at-large. It's hard to tell sometimes. Although I think a lot of brackets will indicate who they believe is an automatic qualifier. But yeah, the Aggies are, there are some that have the Aggies as high as, a 3 or, 4. There's one as a 3. Somebody has them as a 2, which I'll be honest, that feels kind of ridiculous. Because I don't know if the Aggies are a 2 seed. But hey, whatever floats your boat. But to maintain that, the Aggies can lose games and maintain this, because teams, they lose games and then they recover from them and they have good performances, and the Aggies have enough good wins that they can be a solid seed in the tournament. But if you're thinking of a 5 seed, a 5 seed, yeah, the Aggies have to go 18-2 in Mountain West play. If the Aggies go 16-4, I think they're probably a 7-8 seed, 7 or an 8 seed. And that's also assuming that they make the conference tournament title game. If the Aggies go 16-17 wins and win the Mountain West tournament, that probably gets them to a minimum a 7 seed, maybe a 6 seed if the committee's feeling nice. And my pessimism there is just from what I see from the selection committee. The Aggies, I think last year were projected as a 6 seed, if I remember correctly, and they were an 8 seed. And this year with the Mountain West not as good as it was last year, I don't think that's going to help the Aggies in terms of their seeding. The fact that they won a game last year may slightly help. But I have a hard time seeing the Aggies getting better than a 7 seed, both by what will probably happen the rest of the season and just based off the way that the selection committee seeds teams in the Mountain West. It's just kind of a believe it when I see it. But 9-3-1-5 saying, let's dream big and take the 2. Yeah, the 2 seed. Yeah, if they get a 2 seed, they'll probably win in the first round. They'll play some one bid league, the Shoemakers Conference of the East or whatever. Whoever they end up sending. I shouldn't throw shade on one bid conferences given how much they're winning more and more often in the tournament. I've had 2 16 seeds win in the last 6-8 years after having 0 over 30 years. And then a bunch of 15 and 14 seeds keep winning. 4781 texting in saying the Aggies will most likely be an 8 seed again just because we are in the Mountain West. The selection committee will see San Diego State losing at home as San Diego State being bad and not give the Aggies the credit they deserve. Yeah, that's the thing is that Mountain West doesn't really ever get credit for what they do. They just get put in lower seeds. San Diego State does have the kind of built-in reputation, and that's the biggest reason they're considered in the tournament right now. They don't have the most fantastic resume. The win over Houston is that's the reason that they have a ton of respect right now, because outside of that win over Houston, they've not been that impressive. But it does show their ceiling. And that's why there's a lot of people that have confidence in them. And then, kind of like with Utah State, although Utah State's success has kind of been unrecognized, people recognize the success that San Diego State has, and so they have a lot of built-in trust, even nationally. I do need to take a break. I'm a little behind on getting these breaks in. Got a few more texts coming in, so we'll continue the conversation coming up next here on the Full Court Press.
Looking for the perfect cure for those post-holiday blues? The Riverwoods Conference Center is hosting a dinner and comedy night with Dave Burley on Sunday, January 26th from 6 p.m. till 9 p.m. Enjoy a night of gut-busting laughs with clean comedian Dave Burley. His jokes are so funny you'll need a napkin for the tears, not the ribs. Speaking of ribs, you'll be feasting on a gourmet buffet of mouth-watering baby back ribs, flavorful chicken paprika, and more. Food, fun, and fabulous comedy. What more could you ask for? That's Sunday, January 26th. For tickets, visit theriverwoods.com or call 750-5151.
Spend less time at the post office. With Formax and Mint mailing systems from Les Olson IT, you can quickly, accurately, and easily process your outgoing mail and even save on postage. Fold your documents, stuff and seal your envelopes, print addresses, weigh and measure to apply proper postage, all with the click of a button. With multiple model options available, you're sure to find a Formax solution and Mint mailing device that perfectly fits your business needs.
Les Olson IT.
Every question is a great question at Adams Wealth Advisors. Do we have enough money for retirement? Can we finally plan that trip? With the ups and downs of the economy, are our portfolios recession-proof?
This is Craig Adams. At Adams Wealth Advisors, we are here to help you receive peace of mind, whether you've done a lot of planning or a little planning. Count on our team at Adams Wealth Advisors for honesty, professionalism, and integrity.
Visit adamswealthadvisors.com or call 752-1702 to schedule a time with an advisor today.
This is Jordan with Primrose Home Care and Hospice, and I'm here with Barbara. Barbara, how did you become acquainted with Primrose?
I had been trying to get another company to come and help me, and I had waited about 2 weeks, and I needed a bath. My neighbor suggested that she would make a few phone calls, and that very afternoon, Mark Stokes was sitting in my front room, and he said, "What do you need?"
Primrose Home Care and Hospice. We're your home team.
Following the local teams, it's the Full Court Press with Eric Franson and Jason Walker.
Welcome on back in to the Full Court Press. Jason Walker here, waiting on Eric Franson. I would think he'll be back at some point. I forgot to ask him about a ETA. he told me at about 2:00 that he was in Idaho Falls, which is about 2.5 hours away, depending on how fast you drive. And so I don't even know when he left Idaho Falls. I guess he was up there skiing or something. I don't know. Apparently there's nothing to do in Logan, so you got to go up to Idaho, I guess, for some reason. That was kind of the funny thing that you saw over the weekend. Like, there all the different videos of the Utah State student section has got like national attention. People are like, oh, holy crap. They're kind of discovering, or in some cases rediscovering, Spectrum Magic. And, all the detractors saying, oh, there's nothing to do in Logan. Which, saying there's nothing to do in Logan really only tells me that you've never actually been to Logan. Like, they'll say, oh, I have a sister that lived in Logan and there was nothing to do there. You've never lived in Logan if you say there's nothing to do here. Or you're just not an outdoorsy person, which I guess to each his own. Some people like the big city. Some people like to be outdoorsy. But I've heard, hundreds of, I shouldn't say hundreds, but like tens of stories, anecdotally speaking, of athletes who step on campus and just immediately are like, yeah, I want to be here. Because they see the beauty of Cache Valley. They see what campus looks like. They see what is around here. And again, Dexter Akano, who talked, Coach Calhoun talked about him where it's like he's having the best time of his life, not just with basketball, but obviously living here in Cache Valley has been a wonderful experience for him. 4781 texting and saying, Eric will be there in 10 minutes. Just passed him on the road. JK, let me know if I'm accurate, though. I will. We'll put the timer on. It is 4:47 by my clock. If Eric gets here at 4:57, I don't know, I'll send you a cookie or something. Or I'll text a cookie emoji to you if I can. I don't know how to do emojis on the text line here. I can text back to people, but I don't know if I can put it in emojis. We'll see if Eric shows up, because I was saving one of the topics for him, a big one. We'll start the second hour with it. Whether he's here or not, we're going to get into it. Transfer portal news as potentially big changes coming. 8968, one final text for, I got to hit another break because I told you I was behind and I meant it. So we actually got to have a quick segment here. 8968 saying, to get a 2 seed, I would think they'd have to run the table, including the tournament. Talking about the Aggies' seeding potential. Even if they did that, I don't think they would get a 2 seed. They would probably get like a 4 or 5 seed. If Utah State went 20-0 in Mountain West play, then, won all 3 games, they probably would get a 4 seed. I think 5 would even be kind of shortchanging them. Because like last year, San Diego State, I think, got like a 5 or a 6 seed or something like that. And they finished like 6th. So if the Aggies ran the table, they'd get like 2 more quad 1 wins. So they'd be 6-0 in quad 1. And then 1 loss in quad 2, obviously. UC San Diego is going to stay a quad 2 loss. 9-5 saying, what does it take to get a 2 seed? Be in the SEC or ACC. And especially at this point, there's not a whole lot Utah State can do, just because there is an amount of disrespect you're going to get playing in a non-power conference. Like, would the Aggies maybe deserve a 2 seed for going, what would that be, like 33-1 or something like that? Like, that would be their record if they ran the table. Like, would they deserve a 2 seed? Probably. If you can go 33-1, you have 1 loss through the regular season and conference tournament, you probably deserve that. But nobody's going to respect it because they're in the Mountain West and they don't play in the ACC or the Big East or the SEC and all that. So, and unfortunately, the Aggies, unless they blew out everybody by 50 points the rest of the way, sometimes you just can't impress the people who don't want to be impressed by you. And that's just kind of the sad reality, as much as you'd like to believe otherwise. We got to take a break. When we come back, we'll talk about some recognition the Aggies did get from the Mountain West. Maybe a funny little mistake the Mountain West Conference made as well. We'll talk about that next on the Full Court Press.
Alpine Home Medical has been around for over 25 years. Can you believe that? Hi, I'm Jay Broadbent. What keeps us coming to work every day? We're passionate about caring for you. From home and bathroom safety to transportation, mobility, recovery, oxygen, sleep, and more, come into any of our 10 locations today and let us take care of you.
Alpine Home Medical, we bring wellness home.
Visit us at alpinehomemedical.com.
Let's start the new year right with a huge winter clearance at Daryl's Appliance. This is Jay with Daryl's Appliance. Overstock inventory, display models, scratch and dent appliances, and more are being discounted to clear out for the new year. Plus, easily qualify for 12-month financing to spread out your purchase. See store for details only at Daryl's, where service always comes first. Daryl's, west on Airport Road, open until 6 p.m. on weekdays, 5 on Saturday.
This is Kyle at Advanced Door, and we guarantee every garage door we install for a lifetime, parts and labor. That's every door, every spring, every roller, every track, every motor. The entire garage door system guaranteed for a lifetime, parts and labor. We're Advanced Door, and we guarantee you'll be hearing this for a long time. Find out more at advanced-door.com. That's advanced-door.com.
Disasters don't wait for a convenient time. When the unexpected strikes, call the trusted team at Blue Sky. Remember, Blue Sky is that same great ARS team you know and trust.
This is Tom with Blue Sky Restoration. When disaster strikes, whether it's a flood, fire, mold damage, or an unforeseen accident, Blue Sky will clean up, repair, and restore your home or business like it was before. No disaster is too big or too small. For all your restoration needs, you can trust our Blue Sky team.
The Aggies are number one here. The Full Court Press. Connect with us on Facebook, Twitter, and online at 1069thefan.com.
Your locally owned Preston to Providence Napa Auto Parts supplies parts to over a dozen Napa Auto Care centers, and you can trust and count on their ASE certified mechanics. Anything from oil changes to major repair, take it to one of these Napa Auto Care car centers. I can't speak anymore. Some in Logan, obviously. Brent Allen Automotive in Logan. General Repair in Logan. There's HK Auto in Dayton. Trail Riders Repair in Smithfield. You got Hiram Tire in Hiram. Bunch of different places you can go for these ASE certified mechanics with these supplies from Napa Auto Parts. 935 texting in. Going to continue the conversation from the last segment, asking how many teams in a non-power conference received a 2 seed in the last 10 years. Well, Gonzaga has certainly done it. I mean, they got a 1 seed probably a couple times, I think. I don't have this off the top of my head. I remember, and this may be more than 10 years ago, but I think BYU got a 3 seed coming out of the Mountain West. So getting like as high as a 2 seed, again, being a 2 seed, that's like, top 8 in the country. You're a top 10 team. San Diego State probably would have gotten a 2 seed or at least close to it the year the tournament was canceled. But again, like getting a 2 seed, it is possible to do it in a non-power conference. Obviously Gonzaga's done it. San Diego State probably would have done it. They might have been bumped to a 3 seed, but again, 2 or 3 seed, it's possible. But you have to play like a very robust non-conference schedule. Utah State hasn't played a non-conference schedule. It's going to be respected enough nationally. They've played good teams, but not like the elite teams. And that's how you get to be a 1, 2, or 3 seed, is to play those elite teams and obviously have a lot of success against them. But you can either do that in non-conference or, again, if you play in the SEC, ACC, whatnot, you'll get a lot of those games in conference play. I want to finish out the first hour talking about some accolades that Utah State track and field and Utah State gymnastics earned. I believe 6 total athletes earning honors across these 2 sports. In gymnastics, you had Brianna Brooks being named the bars specialist of the week. Sydney Jalen was the beam specialist of the week. And Nyla Morabito, forgive me if I said that wrong, the vault co-specialist of the week. Some pretty good performances, especially Brianna Brooks in that meet last Friday against Southern Utah. Then you had track and field, some pretty big weeks from some of the performers. Their freshman, Daniel Chase, he was named Mountain West Men's Track Athlete of the Week, just Track Athlete of the Week. And then obviously also the Freshman of the Week. Chase won the 55 meters and 200 meters at the Weber State Indoor Invitational. That was this past Saturday, and it was only his second ever collegiate race. So absolutely fantastic stuff there from Daniel Chase. Logan Hammer, familiar name. We've had him on the show. He set the new indoor pole vault record. He holds for Utah State. He holds the USU outdoor pole vault record, but now owns the indoor record. He cleared 5.5 meters at the BYU Indoor Invitational on Saturday. And then Abby Scott, she won Mountain West Women's Freshman of the Week. She finished third place in the pole vault at the BYU Indoor Invitational. She cleared 3.9 meters. And it's kind of funny because the graphic they tweeted out, I don't know if they fixed it yet. I retweeted it. Maybe if I go back and the tweet will be deleted. They had a picture of all of them, and they had like a little picture for each player, had their name, and then it's supposed to be a logo with their school. Except all of them had the Utah State logo, including an athlete from San Diego State. I think it was either San Diego State or New Mexico, and then one from San Jose State. There were 3 Aggies, but so funny little mistake there made by the Mountain West. But anyway, we're going to go to break. We'll be back with second hour here in the Full Court Press.
I'm Dan Patrick, and this is Above the Noise. After selecting Michigan quarterback J.J. McCarthy in the first round, the Vikings season seemed doomed when he suffered a meniscus injury in the preseason. But that couldn't have been further from the truth. Come on down, Sam Darnold. Now on his 4th team, the former top 5 pick stepped in and delivered a career-best season. He threw for over 4,000 yards, 35 touchdowns, just 12 interceptions. And he led Minnesota to 14 wins. However, when the stakes rose, Darnold's performance crumbled. In a pivotal regular season finale with the Lions, he completed less than 45% of his passes. The struggles continued last night, where the Vikings offense failed to score a touchdown for the 2nd straight game and ended a promising season. It's hard to judge a player's entire season based on 2 games, but Darnold's inconsistency and high-pressure moments can't be ignored. And when you consider the quarterback's history and the quarterback behind him, there's now no question the Vikings have a fascinating offseason decision. I'm Dan Patrick, and this is Above the Noise.